Alright, so let me tell you what happens in Cop Gang when Cop Gang takes over something. Essentially, Cop Gang takes over. And so essentially, when they busted the Silk Road, Cop Gang took over. And now that their version has run its course, the next step is to bust the pedo gang. And so that is where the leader in this area for this deputy gang is a Washington State trooper. And that in the past, because essentially the child trafficking route in this area got taken over by this black dude that was doing ISIS drug, and that then he was outfitted with speakers. They essentially tortured him onto the child trafficking route, and then they took it over. So now this person is the leader of that, and now that's being busted again, basically. And so now their go-to course of action is to torture the leader onto the child trafficking route. Okay? And so this is also where their blue coat of silence gets in the way of this, because essentially they're just doing a procedural system where it's an entrapment system. That whole silk system ended up becoming an entrapment system, and that when they took over their own entrapment system, it starts to entrap them. And so this is essentially where right now in Copland, most of everyone takes a profile copy of the leader. And so in the other ones, everybody has an individual one. And that then in this one, this cop was actually a part of that other one. And so he has the original profile, and then everybody else in the cop gang around here took a copy of that. And so essentially what that means is that all of their speakers are essentially the leader's speakers. And now that the entrapment system is run in a timeline way, that's why these people come around all the time. That's why they're always doing, they're anticipating what they know is the timeline. And that essentially the timeline continues and continues. And then the person that has the top profile, which is all of them, essentially, that is where it eventually starts to just torture them onto a child trafficking route. And essentially the only way that they took that shit over is that they knew that it would eventually the whole system changes, and that the leader is usually the sickest fuck. And so all of them have that profile. And so essentially you might start to see the people in the cop gang are going to start to have the ending of the Silk Road, essentially. See, everybody else goes to jail, some on purpose, or a psych unit. And that if you don't, then it moves along. This is what the Silk style systems are about. See, you're supposed to get in and get out. You're not supposed to go to the end, because the end is what turns on the child trafficking system. And that's where everybody just gets loud sound torture until they traffic children around. So, I mean, that's what they get for not having smart people. That's what they get for thinking for themselves. That's what they get for came and pedo banging. That's what you get for running in fucking 3 little girls. That's what you fucking get. That's what you get for fucking pine coning. And that's what you people get. And that the whole idea is that, the people that they acquired this system from are Islamic terrorists. And they're going to sit around and torture the fuck out of all of you into doing a child trafficking route. Well, they sit around not selling the drugs. That's what it is. Essentially, everybody keeps the money on these silk-style contracts. Everybody just keeps the money the whole time and spends it and shit. And then eventually, too many years goes by of not meeting the quota. And that's where the punishment is in those systems, is to be forced around as a slave on a child trafficking route to be filling up the quota and expectation. So all those people that I encountered essentially have a high probability of being the people that will end up having to do that stuff. And that the whole idea is that time and time again, people during Silk Road, they would just refuse, and then eventually everybody would see them driving around homeless with a van and shit. And that's the truth. And that people in the frats and stuff, they would have seen guys in the frats, that eventually they'd have to drop out of school, and eventually they would end up doing a child trafficking route. And that they knew that at the end and shit, and they just sat around feeling pompous, just like the rest of you cops. They're just like the rest of all of you. Just like the crankheads down in the South that are all white supremacy and shit. They sit around, they start reaching out, they start feeling confident, and that's where they're at the end. And they think that they're smart enough to get away with all of it or something. And then eventually, a whole huge worldwide world starts to sit around and to torture onto a child trafficking route, right? And so it doesn't matter what kind of weird theories of bitch offs, they all say the same thing. Everybody says the same thing. And then all of those people, pretty much, end up being broadcasted as entertainment eventually. And every single one of those people assumed that it would never be doable. They assumed that they could just refuse and shit, just like you cops. And that even in the South, at the homeless shelter and shadow taping stuff that I was doing, there was a cop, and he probably did the same thing. Even he was on the child trafficking homeless route. He was an ex-cop. And he would have been. See, it used to be that you guys used to only have one person in that type of stuff. Now you guys all use the pedo gang system. And this is where, you people in this area, there's only one profile that any of you ever use. Because you guys know how to get this person to be getting this profile. And this is the shit that you people use. Everybody uses copies of this. And that's where essentially that copy, and anybody that has one, you'll all be thrusted onto a child trafficking route. And then you'll all be arrested. Basically. Well, when I went around and researched that, and I pretty much found where you all will be going And that if you all of a sudden disappear and are seen on your path on the child trafficking route that I found, you'll probably all be arrested. For being potential child traffickers. Basically, that's kind of where my information is probably enough to justify arresting all of you if you people are seen doing the same route. You know, they don't need much to arrest people, and that pretty much they know that I was basically researching what I knew all of you would be on, right? You know, you people could have just busted it instead. And then that would have shut it down. But you guys kept it going. You guys kept fuck trucking the money out. You guys kept McDonald's and the fucking money out. You guys kept paying for fucking groceries with all the money and shit. Child trafficking. That's where all that free fuck clubbing money is. You guys are just spending the fuck clubbing money. And that it's child trafficking. And that you guys have to literally be with profiles in that child trafficking system just to get that money. So if you're spending the quota money, then the whole group ends up being thrusted out as the next group, because the previous group that was making all the money is what it is. The previous group that was making all the money was spending all the fucking money, and then they ended up getting pushed out to the fucking child trafficking route. And then you guys sat around collecting all the money. And then, you know what they did? They sat around collecting all the money from the previous group that was running that stuff. And then they eventually went out on this child trafficking route. And then you guys took it over. And then you all sat around spending all the money. And that is where now you people will be the next group. And that, you know what? Since I knew about this one profile that you guys were using for everybody, I knew that in this area that it would represent, see, normally it's like a group of 6 or 8 or 9 or something like that. You people use like thousands of people in this area in a hookup site that all use essentially the same fucking profile. Every one of you cops, mayors, tons. And so, I knew that. Went and researched it. Went and came back in 2018. I was like, hey, here's enough to go on for a major top level investigation. You people covered it up because you guys were busy spending the money. I even told all of you that it's millions of dollars. It's millions of dollars that's expected. Millions. The government's not going to pay a bunch of Islamic terrorists millions of dollars. That's basically it. So, the whole idea is that when you guys do this stuff that is reserved for military intelligence and Central Intelligence Agency, this FBI fuck club and shit, you people fucked up. You people should have realized that the stuff that you people do, you probably can arrest all these people just for impersonating federal agents. Because FBI agents aren't allowed to impersonate military intelligence. They're not allowed to impersonate CIA. And the whole idea is that approved undercover people, but that you guys have whole FBI office buildings and shit. And that those people aren't undercover. And so even the theories of being an undercover pseudo FBI DEA or pseudo FBI CIA, you people are regular police officers. That idea is reserved for undercover. And so in reality, the things that you guys are doing on your own without military intelligence, without Central Intelligence Agency, has you all impersonating federal agents, right? See, if you're a dumb fucking inspector, you're just supposed to do boilerplate FBI investigation. You're not undercover. None of you are. And so the whole idea is that you people shouldn't be doing that stuff. If you guys suspect this type of shit happening with Islamic terror and child trafficking and shit, then you people need to inform the FBI in a real way, and then a very real group from Washington, D.C. will do a very top level investigation. But you people do a fucking gang system, and that none of your investigations do anything, and that then you guys are essentially operating as undercover CIA agents, and that is illegal. See, forensics teams, you know, the women that talk to the kids, and if it's like a major organization, then that's the stuff. That's what the people that get the Washington, D.C. jobs. Okay, podunk fucking FBI agents. You people are podunks. Right? Yeah. Well, in ways, Seattle, but L.A., they have a top child trafficking investigation team. There is a major cross-country child trafficking network that gets the #1 child trafficking team. Not stupid podunk, okay? Not do-ragging in the 90s podunk, okay? You people, if you people were even skilled in that intellectual way, then you people would probably be in Washington, D.C. or L.A. I guess Seattle, scrub them off. Or New York City. Or Atlanta. I mean, that's where the best people are. And so they travel around. And so if you guys are internalizing this inside of some sort of seized gang system, Silk, and then they call themselves undercover and shit, and then they like walk into their FBI office and drive around state trooper cars and shit. See, I know that none of you are supposed to be doing that stuff. I know none of you are supposed to be infiltrating anything. I know that a local drug metro is not supposed to be tackling a cross-network heroin, fentanyl, child trafficking gang system. That is the top-level stuff. Little local podunk fucking retards. None of you are supposed to be doing that. And then the fucking guy in Seattle is a part of these people. He is.